What's up? How you doing? Here we are, Monday, beginning of the week. It'll be the end of the week before you know it. Beautiful day today, perfect weather. I want to talk about jawbreakers. I used to love this. Well, I still love it, but I used to buy this when I was a kid. Just before I would go to school, I'd grab a couple of these boxes, and then throughout the day I would eat one. And the good thing about it was that it wasn't gum where you had to get rid of it somewhere under the table. This was like candy that would dissolve in your mouth. And these back then were a dime each. So I'd go in there and I'd say, give me 2 of those. And then I'd have these in my pocket and I'd eat one at a time. Love these, great flavor. I love the purple and green ones, but the rest of them are great. The yellow one I have a little bit of an issue with, but after the coating of the yellow, the lemony flavor is gone, then it tastes just as good as the rest of them. But yeah, I love these jawbreakers. There are other companies that make jawbreakers, but this one here, this one's the best. I remember when I was in the 2nd grade, had these 3 kids that were kind of like troublemakers. They sat in the back close to me, and they would be chewing gum all day, and it was not any kind of gum, it was that green apple gum. So the back there, a 15 by 15 area, would smell like apples, like green apples, very refreshing, and they would chew that all day. Girl and two dudes in the 2nd grade, and the teacher never noticed. And then when I got to the 6th grade, I was introduced to a company. It was like a fundraiser, you know, at school they would give you items to sell. And at one point they were giving us something called the world's finest chocolate bar, or the world's finest chocolate. And you'd go and sell to your family, to friends, whoever. And they had these plateaus. Once you reached them, they would give you like an item, like a prize. And I remember one of them was a memo, like a plastic notebook, and it had a place to put your pen and all of that. I ended up getting a couple of those, but that was my favorite chocolate company, world's finest chocolate. And I remember back then I would visit downtown a lot by myself on the train. You know, I would tell other kids, but my mom won't let me, so they couldn't go that far. But I wouldn't tell anybody. I would get on the train, go downtown, and everything revolved around the arcade. Planned my whole day around the arcade. And the world's finest chocolate, the wrapper inside had coupons in those days. So it was like Burger King. You'd go to Burger King, give them the coupon, and if you bought like a Whopper or something, they would give you free fries or a free Junior Whopper. I remember one of them. And so I would go to Burger King. I always brought enough money just for whatever I needed to do. Like the arcade would have a few dollars, then lunch would have a couple of dollars, and then I'd hand in my coupon and I'd get my little meal, find a table, and I'd eat my meal there, and then I'd go back home after. And it was fun because I love the trains. Sometimes instead of going to the arcade, I would spend the entire day in the subway system, because you only pay once. You keep hopping on and going on a different train, and you just rotate. As long as you don't get out of the subway system, you can keep riding for that one token. So I would do that sometimes all day. I'd be on the inbound, outbound, different places in town. One time I got off at the beach in the wintertime. I was far away from home, and I was thinking, nobody knows I'm here. Nobody knows. And that kind of, you know, excited me. That was like I was on my own. It's kind of like that same feeling you get when you get your driver's license. So remember I was walking around, first time I had been to the beach with about 6 inches of snow on the sand. It was all crunchy, and I walked around by myself, and I go, wow, I was like far away from my home. And then another time, around the same year, I went to the airport, the international airport, and I kind of pretended that I was going to go somewhere far. So I did my whole, you know, exploring of the airport. I even stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and got a honey dip. honey dip donut, which at the time was my favorite. And there was a place in the subway system where there was a Dunkin' Donuts at one of the stops, and that happened to be my favorite stop. It was big, it had a lot of other things, so I would stop there and I would get a donut, and I'd sit on the bench, I would eat the donut, and then I would continue on my journey. Nobody in my family had any idea, nobody, that I was downtown or, you know, all over the place inside a train. I think they thought that I was somewhere in the neighborhood playing with some kids, which I did that too. I would disappear in my neighborhood, you know, sometimes 10 blocks away, sometimes further, and I would, you know, hang around with kids, play stickball, kickball, squash, and then you know, lights go on, like the old expression. The old expression was, when the lights come on, come home, and that's how it was back then. When the lights came on, I would say, okay, I gotta go. And I think, you know, I remember Tuesday nights, I would be over at a friend's backyard. He had 2 sisters and himself, and we would play kickball, and I was really good at kickball. I know it's not an exciting sport, but I was really good at kickball. And I remember one night specifically, sticks out like a sore thumb. It was Tuesday night, and I remember I had a watch on. I looked at my watch, and it was like 7:56, and the ball comes rolling to me, and I kick it really hard, and I remember it went way up, and as the ball is going up, I ran, did my little home run thing, and I said, all right, I gotta go now, Happy Days is on. And I went home to watch Happy Days. Happy Days was a big show back when I was a kid, very popular, and I enjoyed it. But I also enjoyed Laverne and Shirley. They had a killer theme song. You know, that was a very inspirational theme song Laverne and Shirley had. Lenny and Squiggy living upstairs, but it was a good show. I always liked that time period, you know, that was it, like early 60s or something, and the outfits, the clothing, living in Milwaukee. I remember I was into that show so much, both of those shows, that I had said to somebody when I was a kid, I think I'm going to go live in Milwaukee when I get older. And they looked at me and they said, what for? Milwaukee's cold in the wintertime. I was like, oh, it is? Yeah. But yeah, Milwaukee had a cool sound to it. And only because, you know, the Fonz lived there. And I will say about the Fonz, I've run into him a few times now. One time I ran into him at the car show. There was not new cars, these were like muscle cars. People rebuild them and all that, and they had them at some auditorium place. And so we went and we saw all these cars, because I'm a big fan of the GTO 1967 and the Judge 69. So as we're going through, a lot of biker people were there. I look over and I see Henry Winkler with Joni, turning to Erin Moran or something. And he was there with her taking pictures. They were charging people $10 a picture, and that was at a time when she was financially strapped, and I think he was doing a favor for her. You know, taking all these pictures. So we took pictures. She had left it there. She was leaving when we had arrived, and we talked to him, and we took a picture with him, and he was very, very nice. Very nice guy, polite. Gave my wife a little back rub, had his hand around him, rubbing her neck. So I ran into him there first time, and then another time I saw him at a restaurant. Went to eat at a restaurant. He was sitting at the table, had a beige suit on, he was eating. I didn't bother him then. Another time, a few months later, we're at the same place, and I said, I'm gonna go talk to him. And I went and asked him, because I knew somebody who was friends with Henry back in college, Emerson. So I went and I approached him, and he kind of, you know, he kind of like backed up a little bit. I don't know if he thought I was one of those crazy people, but I said, I'm just going to ask you a question. And he's looking at it, he goes, so I asked him, and he goes, I said, do you remember a person, and I gave him the name, and he was very polite. He didn't remember. He was like, he says, I don't, I'm sorry. He goes, I'm sure, you know, that this happened, he said to me, but I don't remember him. I'm so sorry. And I said, it's okay. But he was very, very polite. And And then he went on his way back into the restaurant. You know, I felt like maybe I shouldn't have bothered him. He looked, I don't know, not annoyed, but a little bit frightened. Had a little bit of a frightened look on his face. Little putt-putt there. And then I ran into him again a few months later at another restaurant, this time a fancy restaurant. And they had these fish tanks and everything, and I got up to take a look at the fish, and I said, while I'm up here, I'm going to use the facilities, go use the bathroom. And as I'm going through, I passed by a table, and Henry Winkler was there with a few other people, and somebody must have said the funniest joke, because he was laughing his ass off. You know, he had this ridiculous face, laughter coming out, and it was like out of control laughter. And I said, funny joke. I didn't hear the joke. So yeah, that was the last time I saw him, and that was probably that was pre-pandemic, so probably like 2019. But really nice guy. And that time I still have the picture. It's on one of my YouTube videos that I did years ago. Me and the Fonz and my bride. So yeah. But yeah, I used to love the two shows, Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. Came on Tuesday nights. And I remember originally the theme song for Happy Days was the Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and the Comets, right? Not comments like you're talking. And I love that song. I thought it was a better, you know, theme song for Happy Days. And I had a friend in the 5th grade, and I had mentioned to him that I'm a fan of that show and I'm a fan of that song. And he goes, oh, I got that song. He goes, I'll call you tonight, I'll play it on the telephone for you. Calls me up that night, and he put the phone up to the speakers, and I get to hear Rock Around the Clock on the telephone. So, but I really like Laverne and Shirley. I like that whole show, you know, it spoke to me. Like that lifestyle. Father had a pizza place, and they worked in a beer factory. So yeah, we lost Laverne, but Shirley, Cindy Williams, still around. I'd like to meet her, tell her what a fan I was of that show. Anyway, that's it.